I just wanted to do a quick update on kind of where I am. I'm still working on wheels. I have 3 done now. And actually the third one I did from the last video is actually so far not the nicest of the 3 that I've done. I mean, it's good enough. I mean, it's just that if you really look at it through one of these, you can see a few little issues with it, but it's fine. The 4th one I'm working on here is actually so far turning out to be one of the nicer ones, one of the better ones. It looks like a mess around here because I did put some CA around to this edge. I don't really trust those little screws in the plastic just because on other areas of the car I have broken the screws from screwing them into plastic. They're just brass. The screws are like plated brass. And there's been a few times where as I'm screwing them in, they're not even in all the way and they just snap in half. So I don't trust the strength of the screws. I don't trust because of the age of the plastic. You know, when plastic gets old, it gets brittle. And I don't fully trust those 4 little screws to hold this together for the life of the car. And I found a clever little way, cheating little way, to get those screws in, because I found it they would go in about 3/4 of the way and they would just not bottom out, but they would stop wanting to go in. And I was afraid if I cranked too hard I would break them, but typically it would strip out the slot for the screw head. And so what I started doing on the 3rd wheel I did, and I don't remember how I did the first 2, but what I started doing on the 3rd wheel that I did was I would cut the screw down. I would cut off the last 4 or 5 threads, file the end so it was smooth, and then screw them in that way. But I did something a little bit maybe cheating with this one. What I did with this one was I would start the screws in about halfway or so, and then I would take a hefty clamp. This has got a lot of force behind it, and I would put it just like that to squeeze the ring down. And I actually have another one put on the other side to squeeze that ring down. Then I'd use my soldering iron on the screw, and that would soften the plastic and just push it down until it was seated. So basically melting the screw down into the plastic. Then I would let it completely cool and then take the clamps off, and it was held solid. When that plastic recools, it cools into the grooves of the screw and it's solid tight. And then I went around the edge with some CA glue, and or super glue for, if you're not familiar with what CA, it's basically this stuff right here, and it's the thick stuff. You don't want to use the extra thin. If you get the thin CA, it just runs out like water and it'll get everywhere where you don't want it. So don't use the thin stuff. Okay. And I kind of lied to you guys last time. I mentioned, and as you can see, I've got this top part here done, and I just started the bottom side here. But I think I said in one of the last videos that for this bottom ring, I didn't have to change the diameter here. And for some reason I was remembering wrong. I was remembering that on the first 2 wheels I did, which I did those first 2 wheels like a couple of years ago. I mean, this project has been sitting here for quite a while. But I remembered, for some reason, those on the others not needing that. But on that 3rd wheel that I did, and just test fitting this one, I do have to go in and squeeze those. And again, just to refresh your memory here, it's taking a socket on some water pump pliers here and just going in and just gently squeezing all the way around. Now when you're doing this, when you squeeze it, it's a tiny amount. Okay, you should barely see it move at all. And when you take your next step around, it's a tiny step. If you take big steps like this, it will leave like a waffled edge around here, okay, or a scalloped edge around here. You don't want that. So tiny squeeze, tiny rotate, squeeze, rotate, just tiny amounts all the way around. Okay, and you do it a little bit and then trial fit it, and then take a look at where it needs to be adjusted, fine tweak, adjust those, and keep fitting and adjusting. You don't want to go too far. If you go too far, it's too hard to bring it back out. Okay. And also on the lower sets, on the lower parts here, I've noticed And I do remember noticing this on the first few wheels I did. I just kind of forgot about it. But the little pieces here, the geometry is off. So they don't go in all the way. So when you press it down, it's like one edge. Like you can see, let me get something else to point with here. Like for example, on this one, that ridge, come on, cooperate. That ridge here barely grabs the plastic, whereas that ridge over here is deep into the plastic. It's like the angle of this isn't quite perfect for that. So what I did on some of these over here, was I actually shaved in right here. I sliced in a little bit here to get that edge into the plastic a little bit more. Maybe that one's a little bit more obvious here. I shaved that edge to get that into the plastic a little bit more. I don't really think you have to do that. I mean, they still lock in okay. When you put this ring on, that'll help hold them in. Plus, once they're all in, I go in with a toothpick and a little bit of that thick CA, and I just touch them on, like just a little bit here, a little bit here. That just kind of helps lock everything together, just to keep things from popping apart, which again, technically you probably shouldn't even have to do that. I'm just paranoid about these things falling apart, okay? But of course with a tire on, all that'll be covered. And also the wheel weights in here. I think I showed you on the previous video. Let me grab one of these here. I showed you going in and just kind of snipping off each side, and I think that's all I showed you. In order to get these to fit, I actually snipped all four corners, so it makes like a square profile. And not only that, but on the plastic piece, I think I showed you that already, where they go in, you can't see them here because that cover's on, but where they go in, I had to shave the edge of that plastic a little bit to get them to push in there because they're just way too tight. They're way too tight as is. So again, with these wheels, you just really got to take your time. Just trial fit everything, you know, test fit it, and just trim it and shape it as need be to get them to fit in there properly. And the bottom spokes, since they are so much shorter, they take a little bit more time of bending and tweaking to get everything to fit just right. And also, one more thing, I forgot this. There's an odd number of short spokes all the way around. So as you're working your way around, you'll get to say this one here. I'm sorry, you'll get to this one here, and then the next one, because remember, you do every other one. So I'm doing every other one. And then the in-between ones go over top of those. Well, when you get around to here, the last one goes right next to this one because there's an odd number. So at this one, this leg gets bent over top of this one, but it's going to be underneath of the one that goes there. So that last one here you put in, one leg gets bent one way, the other leg gets bent the other way. Again, I'm sure you could figure that out when you get to it. You know, it's not that big of a deal. So I know this is like the third video I've done where I've talked about wheels, and you're probably getting sick and tired of hearing about wheels, and I promise you this is the last time I'm going to talk about these wheels, because I got 3 done, I got 3 more left to do. Well, I got 3.5 done. And but there's another wheel I want to talk about, and that is the steering wheel. Now, this is the kit steering wheel. And over top of the kit steering wheel is this piece right here. And this is, I actually had to look up what this is because I didn't know. It's a horn ring. So this part around here is the horn, I guess. If any of you know better and I'm wrong, please put a comment in and let me know. You know, if I've got this wrong, let me know. But I believe that this is the horn. You press on that ring to blow the horn. I don't know what this is right here. I'm not sure what that is. I don't know if it's for a turn signal or I don't know. If you know, please comment, let me know what it is. This is what Pocher gives us for that. That's not what the real car looks like. This is what the real car looks like. So I want this to look more like the real car, so I made my own set. And what I came up with were these pieces right here. Okay, so that's the kit version, and this is the one I made. Sits on here like that. All right. And the way I did this, this is just made out of brass. I took some brass wire and a piece of brass I cut into a circle and drilled a hole. The back side looks a little bit messy. That's where I soldered everything together on the back side. This is also brass. I turned a chunk down on the lathe and then soldered a little tab on it here. And what this is plated with, you know, one of these days I would like to get into nickel plating. The process and the supplies to do nickel plating is really not that expensive from what I've seen. I just haven't gotten the stuff yet. And maybe possibly chrome plating, but from what I've read, chrome plating can get kind of nasty with, you know, the leftover chemicals, trying to properly dispose of everything. So what I did for these brass pieces here was I used, where'd it go? I used this stuff right here. It's called liquid tin. This is a clear liquid, and when you put brass or copper in it, I think it works better on copper actually. When you put brass or copper in it, it coats it with tin. It's a chemical reaction between the chemical in here and the copper, and it puts a thin layer of coating of tin on it. And that's what this is right here. Now, from me just playing around with it, this is the first time I've ever used this stuff. It doesn't seem like you can get a really high polish on it. This is about as polished as I could get it, which is not as shiny as the kit parts. But when you look at the photo of the real cars, as best as I can tell, the real cars are not chrome shiny like this. They're more like dull shiny like this, as best as I can tell. Now the thing with this liquid tin is when you put your brass parts in it, it's not like the longer you leave it in, the thicker the coating gets. That's not what it does. This has a chemical reaction with the, at least I'm assuming it's a chemical reaction. If I'm wrong and you know how it exactly works, don't tear me apart too much in the comments. But when it reacts with the copper or the brass, it creates a thin surface coating of tin. Once the copper is covered, that reaction stops. So you could leave it in for a week and it's not going to get any thicker than if you left it in for 5 minutes. Does that make sense? And I cannot figure out any way of polishing it more than I've already polished it, because if you polish too much, you'll wear through it, because again, it's a thin layer. You'll wear through and expose the brass or copper underneath of it. But still, just to get a non-brass look or a non-copper look, something to look more like metal or aluminum or steel or whatever, you know, this is just a really quick down and dirty way to do it. This stuff isn't super cheap. It's affordable. That's why I have it. I mean, stuff that's way too expensive, I don't usually buy. But you know, in a pinch, it works pretty decently. So these are my my new steering wheel pieces, and that hole actually threads onto the steering shaft that comes out of the instrument panel here. And I just think that looks more realistic than this one. Even though this one's more shiny, I think that one looks better. Now my friend I'm building this for, he really doesn't care either way. I showed him these and he was like, ah, whatever. He goes, I don't care. And you know, it's kind of nice to be building a model for somebody like that they're not in a rush to get it. He's told me more than once, he goes, I don't care if it takes you 10 years. On one hand, it's kind of nice not having a deadline, but on the other hand, it kind of sucks not having a deadline, because that makes me put it off more. Does that make sense? I feel like I've had this thing way too long already. I want to get this done sooner than later. I want to get this to him sooner than later. But it is nice that he's not really in a rush for it. So anyways, that's my steering wheel pieces. Those are pretty much all sorted, ready to go. Like I said, I'm still building wheels. One of these days, I'm going to rebuild this. I'm going to restart this. And remember, one of the things I'm going to do here is cut a piece of mother of pearl. I have several pieces of this mother of pearl. Now, yeah, it's too short that way, but at an angle, it's just barely fits. And if I go this way, I won't get too much of that brown in there. I got 5 pieces of this. Some of them are kind of ugly. Some of them look nice. I'll practice cutting the ugly ones first. I might start this sooner than later because I'm still waiting for leather. I'll be recovering all of this. That's already peeling off. I don't like the way, some of these pieces are loose. I don't like the way that looks. So I'm still waiting for him to come up with some leather. Again, he's not in a rush, so I don't know if he's found any yet or if he's even looked for anything yet. But I'm kind of getting to the point. I mean, there's still plenty I can do. I still need to work on fitting the hood panels a little bit better. I mean, they're pretty good now, but they could be better. I still need to work on the fenders a little bit. Again, they're okay as is, but again, they can be better. So there's a lot of little odds and ends I can sort out. But I don't know when I'm going to get a chance to get another one of these Pocher build videos out. So I just wanted to give a quick update where I was, show you what I did with the steering wheel, and yeah, so it might be a few more weeks before I get another Pocher video out. So we'll just kind of see how it goes. So as always, thanks for watching.